All right. Welcome again to another episode of Under the Dome. We're on a 4-game winning streak, so it's been a good month now for Saints fans. Who would have known that with that sack by Cam Jordan of Cam Newton in Carolina back in Week 3, that was the start of something really, really good. And all I can say is I think we're flying high again. Oh, what the hell? Ah, I timed this thing and everything, and it did not come on like it was supposed to. That stinks.
Oh, man.
Right. I'm going to have to cue this up again. I am sorry. That's my bad, as they like to say, as the kids like to.
We're going to fire the producer. You know that, right?
That's what happens when you cue all this up ahead of time and you've got it all set, and this is what you get. And it's still not working. What is going on here? Oh. What? Oh, well, I'll keep playing with this. I'll introduce Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing good, man. You're doing fantastic. While you cue that up, let me pay the bills real quick. I want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring our show. Invite you guys to follow us and their other podcast, the C3 Network. We want to invite you guys also to follow a guy that we had on here a couple of weeks ago. Very, very excellent guest, Barry Mathern, Who Dat Fireman, or Dat Fireman. Anyway, y'all follow him. He does a show an hour prior to us on Tuesday nights. This guy, he's worthy of the time that you spend following him. I'll put it that way. Very reputable guy. Very upstanding guy. We want to invite everyone to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and on YouTube. We thank you guys so much for your support, and we're here for you. As Alan said, we're on a 4-game win streak. And you made a very, very astute point there. This entire season seems to have turned on a play by
Cam Jordan,
a player that has been absolutely off the charts. I think that Cam Jordan's game has gone up based on the fact that teams now have to, rather than sit there and looking for Cam Jordan coming off of this edge, they have to be aware of Alex Okafor on this side. Not to mention, you've got Rankins in the middle and Hendrickson in the middle, and I can't say enough about how very well that this defense has risen to the occasion week after week. Because I'll be perfectly honest with you, my only knock on this team, and it's not really a knock, I'm just being I'm trying to pump the brakes a little bit and see things for what they really are and be reasonable. I mean, I'm not booking tickets for the Super Bowl yet. I love where this team sits right now. I love what they've done in the past 4 weeks, what they've accomplished. But this team is not even remotely close to A, fulfilling the potential that it has, or B, where they need to be, quote unquote, run during this season. Consistency is going to have to be much improved from what we're seeing right now. And if you really want something that'll separate your head from your shoulders, that have followed this team in the last decade, that anybody would ever be able to sit back right now and say this team is on a 4-game win streak and the most inconsistent performer on the field in the past 2 weeks I know of would have been Drew Brees.
Yeah. I mentioned the Cam Jordan play because it was like on that drive against Carolina, Carolina seemed to be able to just move the ball at will, just like what we saw the previous 2 weeks. And it was almost like, and I'll mention the Cam Jordan sack in just a second, but it was almost like that was the last that the Saints fans were going to see of the bad defense. The bad Saints defense is blowing coverages, blowing assignments, and making mental errors that are pretty fundamental. And then Cam Jordan makes that play, and basically he got a clean release right to Cam Newton that they missed the block. I believe it was I think it was Christian McCaffrey cut to the inside instead of picking up Jordan on the end, who was lined up as a stand-up linebacker almost. He comes in clean, sacks Cam Jordan, forces the Panthers to settle for a field goal. And from that point on, this defense has played so much better and has gotten better each week. We haven't seen, except for the first drive against the Panthers, we really haven't seen that bad defense where the other team was just running right through us like we're not even there. They are making those adjustments and getting a lot better. Now, you're right. The one player who has been inconsistent right now is Drew Brees. I thought the second half of the Detroit game and the first half of the Green Bay game, we really saw that inconsistent Brees. But in the second half, it's like he found his rhythm again. He started making much better throws. You saw more of what you like to see.
When I spoke of that inconsistency out of Brees, it was more the second half of the Detroit game and the first half of the Green Bay game.
Yeah.
And, I realized that there's moving parts to this equation than a bad day. Considerations to be made as to why that is. And I understand that. But I think that we're going to look, if this thing continues to progress and trend in the direction that it's going, I think we're going to look back on this Green Bay game and be able to say that was the game. That is when this team turned the corner. Because, we got the win, but if you think about it, we were supposed to win. Well, Aaron Rodgers is out. This is a game that we were supposed to win. And
here's my
you saw the team change the narrative over the course of the 4 quarters of that game. Change what people have been able to say about the Saints for the past 5 years. Never shows up. They can't win on the road. Awful. So on and so forth. But bad day, which to me was probably the biggest factor in how the game was playing out. And for the second straight week, the defense said, okay, Drew, don't worry about that. We got you. And they stood up and they took the victory.
Well, my take on that game, and I've said it several times, it's a trap. It was a trap game. There was, I don't know if y'all probably didn't even hear that. Unfortunately, that's how bad my sound system is going right now. Let's try that again.
General Akbar.
Yes. Admiral Akbar. It was a trap because that game, as you can see, was set up for the Saints to lose. No Aaron Rodgers. As I said, and I've been corrected several times by people, 3 offensive linemen weren't supposed to play in this game. 2 of them ended up playing, but they were injured. No running game really to speak of. Quarterback making his first ever start in the NFL. A defense that's struggling. A secondary that's beat up. All these symptoms show that the Saints on paper were the better team than Green Bay. But when you go to play the game, the Saints take them lightly. You know, this is a typical game. The Saints would take them lightly, play badly, or let the Packers hang around and lose the game in the last minutes. And for the first half, that seemed to be almost a script that was being written out there. They couldn't run the ball very well, or what they did, what plays they were running. They must have ran about 20 screens in that first half. Drew Brees couldn't push the ball down the field, threw 2 interceptions. You had a lot of things that went wrong in that game. But like you said, the defense kept them in. And if that was Aaron Rodgers, the Saints probably go in at halftime down 24-7. 31-7, something like that, with that many mistakes. But in the second half, it's like the offense just figured it all out. Got a field goal, touchdown. No, I'm sorry, got a touchdown, field goal, touchdown, kneel down at the end of the game. Meanwhile, the Packers kept going 3 and out. They may get 1 first down, but they weren't advancing the ball, and we were getting the ball instead of inside our own 5. Which is the problem we kept having with Detroit. We got the ball up or around midfield. Ted Ginn Jr. had a great game. Michael Thomas made some great catches. Mark Ingram had an awesome game. By the way, Adrian Peterson, 21 carries, 11 yards. You just saw and of course Alvin Kamara. You know, that was another great game for him, kind of being that thunder and lightning backfield, kind of like with Chuck Muncie and Tony Galbraith, where Ingram's the thunder and Kamara. Sorry, his mom says Kamara, he says Kamara. Kamara, really being that lightning, that fast, that big play guy, just waiting to happen. One day he's going to break it through the middle and run just like you saw the Packers running back do, just go for 45 yards and touchdown. It's really I can't tell you how excited I am, how effective this running game has suddenly become once we got rid of the Peterson distraction, once we stopped trying to include Peterson in the game. You've got a great 1-2 combo. And Kamara can do multiple things. He can run up the middle. He can bounce outside. He can take the screen. So it's not like the case of, Ingram's in there, we're going to run the ball. Kamara's in there, they're going to throw the ball. They both can do everything. And that makes it so much harder to defend the Saints, because I've already said in the preseason and before, there is no number 1 receiver. Coleman can line up on the outside, and Thomas can be in the slot. Snead can be in the slot. Ginn can be in the slot. You can move them. They can all play the X position. They all can play the Y. They can all play the Z. You see all that. So they could be in that their favorite package, which is 11, or posse, which is 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and 1 back. They can be in that formation a lot and do so many things out of that formation. It's just so the offense. It's just waiting. It's going to click, and when it clicks, you're going to suddenly see this offense doing the kinds of things that we're used to seeing back in 2011, back in 2009, where especially in the Dome. They just turn it on, and it's 45-10 kind of scores. This is getting there. It's going to come. I'm not as worried about the offense. I'm more impressed with how well the defense has been playing, though, to keep the Saints in the game when the offense isn't clicking.
Well, that the balance that this offense is showing. That just speaks to how far this team has progressed.
I mean, Brees threw for 331 yards. Brees threw for 331 yards. Did it look like it? It didn't feel like it to me.
No. But against Detroit, you roll up what was it, 52 points,
Mm-hmm.
and he passed for 180.
Well,
What kind of odds you think you'd have got in Vegas on that being the case?
right. Well, he got 3 defensive touchdowns, and once again, we got, even though that was a mobile quarterback, when they kept him in the pocket, they got pressure on him. You got 1 sack on him. The only disappointment was we only got 1 turnover, so we were -1 for the game. But you just saw a much more complete team playing, especially in the second half. Once the offense got rolling, the defense wasn't letting Green Bay get back in the game. And that was huge. I mean, in the past, we have watched, okay, the defense plays a great half, low-scoring game. All of a sudden, the Saints are scoring, but they're not stopping anybody either. So Breeze has to keep throwing the ball, and they have to keep scoring. They have to keep they abandon the run. And you didn't see that. You saw the Saints be able to pretty much do whatever they wanted to do. And
it's like one of the talking heads on Sunday. I forget which one it was. Reference to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That New Orleans Saints teams then.
Absolutely.
But this team has progressed. And that's why I say that it's really up and take notice that we may be, like I say, I'm not jumping the gun, and I'm the first one to pump the brakes and say, let's not get too carried away here. In streak, we still got several really important tests down the road. You got a first place Buffalo Bills team. You got a first place Los Angeles Rams team. Mm-hmm. You got 5 divisional games coming up. This thing is far from over.
You've got the Washington Redskins, who you haven't beaten since 2009. In fact, you've only beaten them in 2009. You lost to them in 2006. You lost to them in 2012. You lost to them in 2015. And you lost badly to that team in 2015. You lost badly to that team in 2012. So yeah, that's not an easy win either. We do have 3 or 4 games, and the Jets. Look, the Jets were supposed to be a joke. This was supposed to be a team that was going to be picking first in the draft. If they don't shoot themselves in the foot like they do against the Dolphins, like they probably will do against New England, they don't shoot themselves in the foot. That's a very competitive team. They are not. Thank you. They are not the pushover. The teams that are looking like pushovers now, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is finding ways to lose. That Buffalo game, I'll watch the end of it after the Saints game. That was a typical kind of game that a team like the Saints in 2015 and 2014 would do. You battle back, you get to the tie, and then all of a sudden you give up a fumble or you have a big play that results in the other team getting a field goal to win the game. You try some last-second Cal versus Stanford lateral game, but the only thing missing from it was yakety sax and the Benny Hill music. That's how you lose games. That's what they do. Carolina goes to the Bears. Trubisky, and of course the team we play next week, Trubisky has a Bob Greasy circa 1973 kind of game. In 1973 in Super Bowl VIII, Bob Greasy threw 7 passes. Okay? The rest of the time you just ran Larry Zonka at that, at the Purple People Eaters. You just run him over and over and over again at him. But yeah, the Bears threw 7 passes and win the game 17-3 because of 2 turnovers. So it's a weird season and things can go wrong. So suddenly now the teams that we thought were going to be easy are not easy. And the teams that we thought were going to really, really be tough, like Tampa Bay, who we all had possibly win the division, challenging the Falcons for that first place position, looks like a team that's in disarray. Carolina sort of looked like they were coming back, has now had a bad game like this, and you're seeing Luke Kuechly missing more games, so you don't know how, where he is going to be a few weeks from now when we play the Panthers again. And then Atlanta is really 2 last-second saves against the Bears and against the Lions from being 1-5. Because
I watched the Falcons play the Patriots the other night. I have not seen Atlanta play that bad since before Matt Ryan came on to this team.
I've seen him play that badly under Mike Smith. I've seen them.
But I think the important thing to remember about the Atlanta, and I told someone this today, the important thing to remember about the Atlanta Falcons is personnel-wise, this is the same on the field last year, and you saw and how they just beat people's faces in last year. I preached all off season. Everybody asked me what I thought Atlanta was going to do. Atlanta would take a step back because they had a lot of turnaround in their coaching staff. And you don't just plug and play coaches like you do players.
Well,
and you
got Steve Sarkisian, whose favorite song is Red Solo Cup. You've got Steve Sarkisian. He single-handedly, I think, ruined Alabama for the national championship game with his play calling against Clemson. And you're seeing a lot of those same things flare up again for the Falcons. But the Falcons' pattern of blowing late leads was kind of set back in last year, back in some games, especially the game I'm thinking of is the Saints game at the end of the season, where they built a 35-14 lead or something like that against the Saints in Atlanta. I believe it was the last game in the Georgia Dome, the last regular season game in the Georgia Dome. And the Saints started coming back. And Atlanta's offense wasn't doing anything. I think they got 1 field goal the entire second half. And the Saints just kept coming back out there and driving the ball. And if Drew Brees doesn't throw that ball to the inside against Jalen Collins, but throws it more to the outside where Michael Thomas could get it or it goes out of bounds, the Saints make that game 35-38. That was one critical interception. They just ran out of time. But you could see, and you look through some of the other games that season, you could see games where the Falcons built up a huge lead and that defense gets left out on the field because that defense is built for speed and they're small. They're built to rush the passer because Atlanta wants to bury you with an avalanche of points and make you become one-dimensional. And you have to throw the ball to get back into the game where their defense can feast on turnovers, they can sack your quarterback and do those sort of things. And, of course, in New England was patient enough and made enough key plays and made that offense turn the ball over by not scoring, not allowing them to score points and getting a couple of, got that one big sack fumble where it got the Patriots back into the game, it got them in striking distance, and by the end, that defense was exhausted. They could not stop anything the Patriots were trying to do. So long and short of it is, games that we thought were going to be really hard look like they're going to be a lot easier, but the games we thought were given games, easy games like the Rams and like the Redskins and the Bills, those games are going to be a lot tougher now, and each week it's going to be a challenge for this defense to improve, not just maintain, not just play as well as they played the previous week. They have to improve. You have to get more turnovers. You have to get more pressure on the quarterback. You have to even shut down the run even more. So you're giving up now, instead of say 101 yards a game, you're giving up closer to 88 yards a game. You're forcing 2 or 3 turnovers. You're keeping the passing game, under 200 yards maybe, or 200 yards or so. That's when you're playing championship level defense.
Sure. And don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not all doom and gloom and saying, well, it's only a matter of time before the other shoe falls. I'm not doing that at all. I love what this team has accomplished. I love what I'm seeing out of this team. That killer instinct where, the Green Bay game, for example, a year ago, we get that 3-point lead, I think it was, in the third or fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. Anyway, when we get that 3-point lead, we sit on it. We don't progress back and score more points to seal that victory, which we did this time. And also, I'd love to point out that in the first half, I want to say Michael Thomas was completely shut out in the first half, was he not?
I don't know if he was shut out, but he wasn't getting good looks. That one interception he threw was directed at Michael Thomas. That was underthrown, and then the other one was a classic Colston seam route that breezed through to the inside instead of throwing more high and to the outside. So it was a little underthrown and in a position where the defensive back could catch it better than Coleman could.
With the conditions being what they were, I wonder, and I'm not making excuses for the guy. I just wonder if Breeze was having trouble gripping that ball.
Well, he had that glove, that Michael Jackson glove on, which bothered the hell out of me.
Yeah, but that's his non-throwing hand, though.
I know, and I don't like him playing with gloves, even if it's your non-throwing hand, because you're still gripping the ball. Okay, you still got this is the hand with the glove. You still got the hand on the ball, and you squeeze it a little bit just before you throw it. You give it. This is why the deflate gate was such a big deal, because if you take a little air pressure out of the ball, you get a much better grip on it because you can squeeze it even tighter. You're less likely to fumble it. Now, it is a bit harder to throw because it's heavier, but at the same time, it's not so much heavier or so much heavy that it doesn't get that good spiral, especially if you're a strong arm quarterback. But by being able to squeeze it tighter and get your fingers around that ball and hold that thing, you've got a much better feel for the ball. A wet ball tends to wobble a lot more, but it wasn't raining so hard and they're constantly rotating the balls in the game. It wasn't raining so hard that I felt like the ball was so wet that it just wasn't enough. What I think Breeze was doing was trying to compensate a bit for a wet ball or a heavier ball, that he was kind of short arming the ball. He wasn't stepping all the way into his throw, getting a good release on it, and it became kind of more of a it's hard to describe other than just more of he's like pushing it to where it's got to go instead of just throwing it.
He's thinking about that throwing motion rather than just doing it.
Yeah, well, he wants to be exact with it, so he's more or less just pushing it almost like a will to get to your target. And as a result, the ball doesn't have that velocity, doesn't have that zip, and the defensive back has a better opportunity to break on the ball. In the second half, he started throwing it more the way he normally does, and they were finding softer spots in the zones. Green Bay kind of dropped more into a zone look than a man-to-man look, and they were getting much better feels for the ball.
Yeah. Do you think it's a fair assessment that we really, through 6 games now, we're 4-2. And we have yet to see that quote unquote Drew Brees game yet. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah. You kind of got a hint of it in the first half against Detroit. You kind of got that hint of a true Drew Brees game, but you haven't seen that classic Drew Brees. Let's throw this ball all over the field. I'm gonna hit guys left and right, and we're gonna score every time we touch the ball. Morstead's getting a day off today. You haven't seen that kind of game, but they haven't had to play that kind of game either. They deliberately tried to become more balanced and play much more of a field position game and much more of a controlled offense that occasionally takes its shots. They're still being aggressive, but they're not that wide open gas pedal down. Here we come. Attack, attack, attack. They haven't done that kind of game yet. And I think that's part of it is on purpose. Part of it is to get, Tony Romo said something interesting during the New England game when the Saints were losing to the Patriots. He said Bill Belichick threw a formation out there that he knows isn't going to work. But he threw it out there just to put it on film, just to give teams an extra play or an extra formation or an extra look to prepare for. If I didn't know better, I'd say Sean Payton is trying to create a new look to this offense that's more run-oriented. So defenses now, when they play the Saints, are going to get out of that soft shell that they've been in for the past 3 years, where they keep everything in front of them, give it up, give the cheap stuff up, but don't give up anything deep. Walk that safety right there in that shell look, keep it in front, and we don't have to worry about the running game because, when it gets to be short yardage, we'll be able to stop it because we can get penetration at background. But what we're going to try and do is pressure Brees, get him off his spot, and keep those receivers in front of us so they can't get yards after the catch and we can limit their effectiveness. I would not be surprised if Peyton is trying to change that look and give a heavy dose of Kamara and Ingram. So now they go, well, wait a minute. This is more of a running game, and they're getting a lot of success running that football. We're going to have to walk a safety up into be that sixth man or seventh man in the box, maybe even eighth man in the box, depending on the formation. I'm assuming it's not a nickel formation, and we're going to have to stop the run first. Otherwise, the Saints are just going to pound this ball on us, and they're going to get the yardage they need. And now allow the Ted Ginns and the Michael Thomases, and whenever Willie Snead gets up to speed, the Willie Sneads start stretching that defense out, because now when they start going in to stop the run, here comes the Saints over the top.
Yeah.
I think there is a bit of that going on.
I wouldn't be surprised. Sean Payton is known for, lack of a better word to use, gamesmanship.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm maybe reading too much into it. It may very well just be, look, this is who we're playing. This is what they're good at. The Bears are, again, a good example of that. The Bears have a good defense. Their defense is pretty much for real because their defense has been – I've watched them a couple of games, and that defense is keeping them in games. Now, here's the key, though. All the Bears really can do is run that football. Their receivers are average, and their quarterback is a rookie who's a pretty good quarterback. He's not a great one, but he's a pretty good one. If the Saints defense can stop the run and make Trubisky beat us with the pass or make him play catch up because we're moving the ball well against that defense, the Saints have a great chance of walking away with a huge win. Okay?
Well,
but
I agree with you on the Chicago defense.
But if the Bears defense can shut down the Saints offense, take away the run, but this is unbelievable I'm going to be saying this, but take away the run, take away Ingram, take away Kamara, and make Drew Brees beat him, then the Bears have a better chance. And I say that only because their secondary and their pass rush is good enough to get Brees off his spot and make the Saints offense sputter. Because right now they need that balance. You know, they're going to give up some plays, but if they can keep that offense contained, you know, that's really going to be the Bears' game plan. Make Drew Brees beat you. Don't let Ingram and Kamara beat us. Because if Ingram and Kamara can beat us, Ingram and Kamara are going to control the clock, wear our defense out. And if they're effective, that just makes it so much easier for Brees to attack that secondary. So it's unbelievable to be saying this. But, yeah, they are going to want Drew Brees to try and beat them by throwing the ball over the place because they think they can get some turnovers that way, just like they got turnovers against Cam Newton.
Well, they're going to find out the hard way that number 9 is number 1, but he's not Cam Newton.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The Saints offense is much better than the Carolina offense. You know.
Well, let me ask you this, Alan. We've broke down the Green Bay game. We've broke down the Chicago game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is wanting to make their reservations in Minneapolis after a 4-game winning streak.
Is it Minneapolis or is it in Atlanta? It's in Minneapolis this year. Atlanta next year, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, in the Megatron's butthole stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not ready to make that reservation yet because you've got several teams you have to go through in the playoffs to go to Minneapolis. Ralph Marlboro compared the 2017 season to the 2006 season, where you really didn't have a dominant team in the NFC. I think he's right to an extent because Philadelphia looks like the best team or the team to beat in the NFC, but they don't look unbeatable. We play certain teams, like the Rams, that we will probably have to go through to earn that number 2 or number 1 seed. We don't play Philadelphia. So let's revisit this after the Rams game, see where we are. I've long believed that you have to go at least 4-2 in the division to get a playoff spot. Now, we want to know because we beat Carolina, but you've got to sweep Tampa. You have to at least sweep Carolina, if not split with Carolina. If you split with Carolina, then you have to sweep Atlanta to go 4-2. No,
you're going to have to sweep either Atlanta or Carolina.
I'm sorry, you have to sweep Tampa and split with Carolina and split with Atlanta. That's where your 4 wins come from. Sorry. I've been doing math all day today. Math, I'm usually better at this, but I'm kind of out of it right now. Yeah. Your 2 losses would be your split with one team. And I'm assuming sweep Tampa because they look like the worst team in the league. Oh, I'm sorry, worst team in the division. So that's your 4-2 record. And fortunately, all of our divisional games come at the end of the season. So you're looking at, okay, we're 4-2 right now. That's 8-4. And you're going to have to win 3 of the next 4 non-divisional games to go 11-5, 12-4, 10-6 at worst, depending on who you lose to. So that's where that's how you have to look at a playoff picture. This is your record now. Add another 4-2 to it, so you're 8-4, and then of the other remaining 4 games, you have to go 3-1. Because if you go 2-2 in those, it's going to be really hard unless you lose to Buffalo and the Jets, because they're AFC teams. If you can beat those 2 teams and split with the Rams and the Redskins, then we'll see where we are at the end of that. I mean, it's that's just so hard to predict this point in the season, because now you're thinking about seeding and everything else, and it's really tough.
I say this every year, but I think this year, especially with all of player injuries that we've seen, your David Johnson in Arizona, your Odell Beckham for the Giants, your Aaron Rodgers for Green Bay, all of these key is J.J. Watt, Houston, all these key and essential players that you see sidelined for the remainder of the season. I think the results of that is going to be a parity like we've never seen before in this league, and I think that's great for the game.
Well, it's not about who you play; it's when you play them.
Absolutely.
Let's just say, for example, the Washington Redskins. When we go to play the Redskins, let's just say Kirk Cousins is hurt. Suddenly, that game is very winnable without Kirk Cousins in the game. For the Rams, Todd Gurley gets hurt. Suddenly that game becomes a lot more interesting because, the Rams defense is going to be tough. But if you put it all on Jared Goff because you don't fear Todd Gurley, suddenly that game is a lot more interesting. Now, I'm not saying that, you want someone to get hurt or anything like that. I'm just saying that when you play a team, Cam Newton, when we played the Panthers back in week 3, Cam Newton was coming off of an injury, and that was reflective in the kind of game he played. When we played, the Lions, Matt Stafford had a bad ankle and a bad calf, so he had to take every single snap out of the shotgun. Well, if the running back was behind him in the pistol formation, it was going to be a running play. When he was on the side of him, it was probably going to be a pass play. Now, they did try and run some draws in the second half that way, and he wasn't going to run away from you. So it made it a lot easier to want to blitz him and turn the pass rush loose on him, and as a result, we got a lot of tip balls because we knew where the ball was coming from. He wasn't going to roll out to create a moving pocket to create passing lanes. So you got a lot of tip balls. Lions running game stinks, so it makes it even easier when you know it's coming to shut it down, and you're putting all the pressure. Oh, and I forgot, Golden Tate got knocked out of the game. Golden Tate is playing very well against us, gets injured, and suddenly the Lions' passing game struggles a lot more.
Well, I mean, you go back to week 1. Minnesota just skull drug us up there about how they were just going to be the team to beat. Well, in the process of them beating us, Sam Bradford got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Where have their fortunes gone since then? So, I mean, like I said, there's more parity now than there's ever been. And that old saying about any given team on any given Sunday, it holds truer now than it ever has.
Yeah, they're pretty much conceding Minnesota. I mean, they're pretty much conceding the division to themselves. They're going to win. They think they're going to win the division because of Aaron Rodgers being out the game. And it looks like that's probably going to be the case. But at the same time, if their quarterback gets hurt, and they've already lost Delvin Cook, if they have to rely on, if Bridgewater can't come back, and they got to rely on, Case Keenum, is that who's playing for him now? Is it Case Keenum?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, Case Keenum came to Minnesota from the Rams.
Yeah. Okay, if it's Case Keenum getting injured and they have to rely on someone else now to carry that game, then suddenly that, Minnesota's not the unbeatable juggernaut they were in week 1. I mean, you can't judge anything. I mean, you can't make any predictions about anything right now. You just kind of have to watch how the game progresses. Kansas City looked unstoppable 3 weeks ago, and they lost 2 games back to back. And both games they lost were games that Kansas City should have won, had opportunities to win the game, and it just didn't work out that way, especially that Oakland game where they had like 4 chances to end that game, and Oakland finally scored. So
that was so anticlimactic. I hated that. I think, and one of my my extra points tonight, I guess we can move on to that. My extra point tonight is please, 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 if you are a National Football League official,
oh God,
the game alone, please, these guys work their butt off to an extent that you will never begin to understand. And when you control the fate of the game in your hands because you threw an unnecessary flag, as in Detroit game a week ago for us, and you're going to tell me that a 5th-string offensive lineman is going to effectively shut Cam Jordan out of the ball game and never get a hold? Give me a break. Call it down the middle. If you call it bad for both sides. But don't screw my team, man.
Well, my daughter was a basketball. I'm getting feedback. I'm hearing myself on your side here. My daughter was a basketball player, and we used to talk about this all the time. We'd watch a game, and we're killing them, okay? And suddenly now the fouls start coming out, okay? And I'm looking at the foul discrepancy, and it'll be like 6 fouls to 1. Like, well, wait a minute. That's just not possible. Or 7 or 8 fouls, they're in a bonus to 1. That's just not happening. They're hacking down there just like, we're hacking them under the goal. You got to call it both ways. A foul should be 5-3, 6-4, 5-5, something like that. It's got to be called both ways. And part of me thinks, and especially when we were looking at that Detroit game, and I most of the calls against the Saints were all legitimate. I know Anyamata got called for a penalty when he pulled somebody off the pile. That is a rule now. You can't go and pull a player off of a pile. It was a way to stop fights and people from getting hurt during a fumble. So that was a legitimate penalty. And the Saints did catch a break, although it was the right call on the Ted Ginn muff, because the ball never hit the ground. When Ted Ginn tried to, and he bobbled it, you can't tackle a guy if he bobbles the ball. The ball actually has to hit the ground if they signal for a fair catch, which is what he did. Okay, so they gave us, that was a good call, and that was a good call, but it seemed like the Saints were getting called for a lot of things, and the Packers were not getting called, especially when it came to the offensive line protecting Hundley. Some people are mad about Ken Crawley's half-hearted, I'm going to give you a little bit of a shoulder rub kind of thing when Hundley scored that touchdown. And like I told some people, I said,
well, it's a catch-22.
Yes, I was mad when he did it, but at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? If he goes and knocks Hundley into next week, you would have not seen that field for 10 minutes. They had to pick up all the flags they would throw at him. Even though he was a runner and even though he was in bounds, he was a quarterback. So you're not supposed to hit the quarterback.
The most effective thing that Ken Crawley did on that play was not anything to do with Brett Hundley. It was he got himself between Hundley and Vaccaro. Could not lower the boom on him and get ejected.
Yeah, you know, and then you talk about a player like Crawley who's on an undrafted free agent contract, not a high round draft pick, even less money than a draft pick. And they're going to hit it would hit him with a major fine because it was the second string quarterback by the Packers. And I'm sure all that was going through his mind, and he's about to level him, and he goes, well, wait a minute, maybe I should. And gave him a little nudge. And probably he should have just gone ahead and wrapped him up, but players don't wrap up tackle anymore. If that happens, it's a major deal. But maybe you should just try to wrap him up. And
what you wind up with is the Cam Newton argument. And with all due respect to our sponsors over at C3, Cam Newton was famous for ducking out at the last minute, and then he got to the point where he'd give you the head fake to one side, and then he'd duck in and make a cut off of it. Well, was it Marty or Stupar that lit him up?
I think it was Marty. I know which play you're talking about, right there on the goal line.
Yeah, on the goal line in the Superdome. He was just going to trot in, and Marty lowered the boom on him, had him seeing 3 of everything, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, like we alluded to, it's a catch-22 because with all the rules and the rule changes that have been put in place to protect these quarterbacks, if Crawley had really lowered the boom on Hundley, he would have been at best ejected.
I don't know if he'd have been ejected because that's really college football. They do that kind of stuff. I just think he would have been – they would have got a 15-yard penalty on the kickoff, or they would have figured out a 15-yard penalty for him, but I think the fine was really what was going to hit him. You know? And like I said, it's a split-second indecision, and he pulled up, so it looks like crap to everybody watching TV. That, you know, that's not football. He didn't hit him like he was supposed to. I would have popped him. Yeah, if you're playing in high school football, if you're playing in Little League, you know, Pop Warner football, yeah, you're going to nail him. But unfortunately,
fines aren't nearly as rough.
Yeah, in the modern NFL, the rules are written to encourage scoring because scoring equals higher ratings and more exciting games. They're written to slow down defenses, and with the emphasis on safety, you know, they are not going to let you just level a quarterback if he's even if he's running. If that's a running back, the rules are different than it is for a quarterback, and especially if you're talking about a backup quarterback now for the Packers.
Well, I want to ask you real quick. This is not on our menu here, but I want your honest evaluation because this is another one of those questions that I'm fielding. It seems as we progress, I'm constantly getting these questions, and I wanted to see what you thought about it. Your honest up to this point evaluation of both Crawley and Lattimore.
Lattimore's the man. There was a play on third down where the Packers decide on a 3rd and 1 play to run a bubble screen or some kind of little screen. Lattimore is not only all over it, he knocks that ball down and doesn't draw a flag.
For me,
Brian Baldinger talked about that play, and it's an awesome play.
For me, Lattimore's play of the game, there was who it was. I want to say maybe it was Jordy Nelson, but they were running a streak down the sidelines. He never even put his hands up. He was watching. He maintained eye contact with the ball, but he just used his body to force the guy out of the play.
Oh yeah, yep, that was another great play. He used the sideline. He is already the greatest cornerback in Saints history. I mean, 6 games in, we're going to say he's the greatest cornerback in Saints history because he does not. You're not getting the penalties. If he has a penalty, it's a rare thing. I'm telling you, if that play, that third down play I'm talking about, if that's Harris, if that's Crawley, if that's Williams, if that's even Bro, flag, got there too soon, touched the receiver. Not only is Lattimore time that play, that he gets there the same time the ball does, he keeps his arm in position that the official can see. He is not interfering with the receiver. He is clearly knocking the ball away. That is an unbelievable play for a rookie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you just alluded to it. If I'm being fair about it, I think that, the Green Bay game was the only game that Crawley really was drawing penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And to be completely honest, and I played cover corner when I played. I think that there were quite a few of those calls that were bad calls.
Yeah.
And I don't say that because he's a New Orleans Saint. I'm from a third party perspective. I don't, if I'm the referee, I can't call that because it's, but at the same time, you're in Lambeau, you're playing the Packers. So I get it.
My view of Crawley is he has taken a step forward from last year, that he can be out there and not be a penalty machine. He is not an elite cornerback. He is clearly a number 2, a number 3 kind of cornerback. But he's not a penalty machine. He's not going to get you hurt, but he's a grabby player. He's a physical kind of corner. He will draw those pass interference calls because he likes to grab. And the key is when you grab, you let it go before the ball gets there. Or if you grab, you're grabbing and driving at the same time, with your arm. So you're getting a little bit of a jersey, but you're also directing the receiver, to mess up the timing. You're not just grabbing to hold on to slow him down. And that's what draws the illegal contact, the holding calls, and that kind of thing. That's what okay, great. That's what you have to look for. Okay. Crawley's not going to get us beat by himself like he used to. I don't know what kind of cornerback Delvin Breaux is going to be when he comes back. A lot of people are thinking, okay, Delvin Breaux of 2015 is going to show up week 9, week 10, whenever he gets to come back and play. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Delvin Breaux is going to have to beat Crawley out and is going to have to show he is that player he was in 2015. PJ Williams has been demoted. He is going to be your nickel back from now on. And I think the Saints kind of wanted him there to begin with, because if you saw in that first game, people wondering why Harris was in there. When they went to 3 wides, Williams came down because Williams clearly seems to be a player that's more comfortable playing on the inside than on the outside. So, we'll see what happens. I think against receivers like what the Bears have, receivers like the Bills have, Crawley is not going to hurt us. I think when we play Atlanta, though, that's when we have to see if Delvin Breaux is back to his old form, because we will need Delvin Breaux out there, because they're not going to let Lattimore take Julio Jones away. They're just not going to let that happen. They're going to move.
No.
they're going to move Julio Jones somewhere who's ever the weakest link in the Saints secondary is going to be. And right now that's going to be Crawley. So, yeah.
I don't know. I've seen twice already this season that the receiver setup has dictated that Kenny Vaccaro is man-on-man with one of the top two receivers.
When they're in a clear big nickel, when they have three safeties out there package.
And I'm going to tell you, Kenny Vaccaro in man-on-man coverage does not give me a warm and fuzzy feeling.
No, well, I don't think they would put Kenny Vaccaro on Julio Jones. I don't think they're going to let Kenny Vaccaro even handle Tyler Gabriel when they play Atlanta. I think that's when you're going to see the three cornerback look, and you'll probably see a rotation of Bell and Vaccaro out there. The problem is they really like Williams being out in that center field. They really like Bell out there playing that headhunter in the secondary. So Vaccaro is getting stuck covering tight ends and third receivers, and playing a bit of the run. But they really like Bell being out there because they think he's a much better cover guy and also a hitter out in that secondary. So it's a different look that we're seeing out. You would think that they'd have Bell dropping down in coverage and let Vaccaro roam, but they're not doing that this year.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We got started a little late, which is we just give everybody time to get their popcorn ready. That's all.
That's it. I'm usually shoveling food before the show. That's one of the reasons why we always seem to run late.
But we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. You guys follow us on Twitter at 79 Saints for my esteemed colleague over there. It's Dad 3721 and the director of our little adventure here, JB at JB Pinto 3. That's John Pinto, and he is the straw that stirs the drink for us.
Don't remind him. Don't remind him of his Yankees right now. He doesn't want to.
Oh no! I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna go there. But if it makes him feel any better, Clayton Kershaw is independently dismantling the Astros as we speak. He has been unhittable tonight. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We hope that we brought a little spark to your Who Dat week. Don't forget, Sunday at high noon in the Terror Dome on Poydras. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
All right, cool. On Poydras, high noon showdown with the Monsters of the Midway,
Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears. The Bears.
The possibility of going 5 straight. And
I think we will. This is a game I expect to win because, like I said, we're a much better team on paper than the Bears are. That defense is tough. It's a John Fox coach team. Sean Payton has traditionally had problems with John Fox going back to his days when he was a head coach of Carolina. Peyton and Fox were on that Giants staff back in 2000 when the Giants laid that egg against the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. But I think we just have too many weapons on offense. The whole key, though, is going to be Ingram and Kamara, that thunder and lightning combo. They have to be able to run that football. And if they can run the football well on the Bears and keep the Bears on their heels, that just opens it up for Michael Thomas and company for the Saints, really, that passing game to get rolling. And you know, if we're moving that ball and controlling that clock, I think they'll have to put the game on Trubisky's shoulders, and that plays right in our defense's hands.
I agree completely. I believe that, you know, this is going to sound kind of, I don't know that I am as convinced on that Chicago defense as you are. Looking at their track record, they basically took God's gift to the wide receiver position, Julio Jones. They took him out of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Every team that they've played up to this point, last week they played Carolina. They took Kelvin Benjamin completely out of the equation. They eliminate your top receiver, but in the final analysis, I don't think that the rookie Mitch Trubisky is at a point yet able to duel head-to-head with Drew Brees and come out on top, especially with no running game to support it when the Saints have Kamara and Ingram.
Well, you know, the Bears do have good running backs, but the key in this game is our running game has to really be rolling, and we have to keep the Bears on their heels, and they're going to have to run behind Armstead and Pete. It's got to be on the left side because with Warford out and you've got Clemente in there, that's going to be where Hicks, ex-Saint Akeem Hicks, is going to be coming after Breeze to try and get him off his spot. So if you can run the ball and you kind of eliminate Hicks, making him more run conscious, or that play action pass holds him up enough, Breeze can step up in that pocket, make those plays, and get that passing game going. But like I said, this whole game, the game plan is going to have to rely on Ingram and Kamara just pounding that ball on them or keeping it 3rd and short all the time. We can't be playing games where, you know, it's 3rd and 12 and hope to pick up a first down, or 3rd and 9. We've got to be playing 3rd and 4 or less. You know, that's the easiest way to win this ball game.
Sure. You control the clock, the tempo of the game, and you are very, very hard to beat. And
you know,
if I make no other point,
go ahead.
I want to make the point that the New Orleans Saints teams that you've seen for the previous 3 seasons is not the New Orleans Saints that you're watching this year. And if you need proof of that, go back and watch that Green Bay game, because a year ago, this New Orleans Saints team blows that. They're not able to withstand those body shots early from Hundley and then make their adjustments at halftime, not only offensively, but defensively as well, to shut them down on offense and have Drew and Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram to be those impact players. And as we mentioned earlier, Drew is having, for lack of a better word to use, maybe he's having an inconsistent season thus far. For the first time in a long time, you have a defense that is able to put him on their back and say, you just do you, we got this, and we're going to give you the opportunity to pull it out. And at the same time, you've got a ground game opportunity to be in that ball game late. And when you get that lead, they're going to keep moving the chains, running out that clock, where it's not completely all on your defense and it's not completely all on your offense. It's more of a thing on this team.
You know, this is the last point I'm going to make, and then we're going to have to sign off. You know, some people maybe listen to this thinking, oh, Drew is inconsistent because he's old. You know, he's 38 years old. That's not what it is. It's a bit of the timing right now because they've had so many injuries. There's a bit of a timing factor as it come in. I mean, keep in mind, he did throw for 331 yards, but only one touchdown. We're used to seeing multiple touchdowns. Ted Ginn Jr. had a good game, 141 yards receiving. And again, both seemed like that's not what was going on. It didn't seem like they were getting that many yards, but they were. And it's because we've been able to run the ball a lot better. It's almost like a Back to the Future kind of thing. We're almost going back to 2006 with some of the formations, some of the plays that we're running, where Drew wasn't Drew Brees that we would know in the next few years in the beginning of that season. I'm thinking about that Philadelphia Eagles game, for example, where we controlled the clock over the last 8 minutes of that game. We won that game 27-24. And basically, that was a Deuce McAllister kind of game where hand it to Deuce. It's 3rd and short. Hand it to Deuce. Deuce is going to get that first down. And, we had a ball at that game. But it wasn't the kind of game where the Saints just came out there and blew the doors off of the Eagles and, we just rolled to victory. No, the defense kept us around and we just kind of milked that clock and ran the ball. And at the end of the game, it's not a style win. It's a 27-24 kind of win. Season when we saw like the Dallas game and the Steelers game where we sort of started putting a lot more points up on the board and we started seeing that kind of stuff. These were more workmanlike games. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing a bit of here is that workman kind of ball game. So as a result, for us, it looks like, okay, man, something's wrong with Brees. He's not slinging it all over the place like he used to. So I just want to get that out there because I didn't want people to think that, okay, he's 38 years old. It's time to start looking at a quarterback next year because I can almost guarantee you Drew is going to get an extension, probably a 2-year extension.
That's what I figured, 2 years.
Yeah, 2-year extension. They may draft a quarterback next year. They may wait until the following year, but he's getting extended. He is not a declining player. He's still playing at an elite level. We just don't need him to be Superman right now, and that's a good thing. I think we'll win a lot more regular season games.
At the same time, and this will be not a debate, but a
discussion,
a conversation that we can entertain further at another time. But at this point, you have no choice but to re-up on Brees.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you don't have a quarterback ready to take over.
No.
Even if, you're not getting Kirk Cousins, you'd have to trade for Alex Smith. So you're not in a position to move on to someone else. Your best bet to keep going with this team is to stick with Brees for a couple more seasons, then work on grooming his replacement. And I say replacement, you're really going to end up having a game manager. But right now,
you're going to have a transitional quarterback between Brees and the next guy.
Yeah,
you've waited too long to try to start filling that void.
Well, and elite quarterbacks do not fall out of the tree. The Eagles got theirs because they traded up into the top 2 position. The Rams got theirs because they were in the top of the draft. Elite quarterbacks just don't come to you. So here's the thing. The easiest way to extend Brees' career is to be able to run the ball as well as we've been running the ball. So that's the good news behind it. So you can afford to pay him another 2 years and then let him be Superman when he absolutely needs to be. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for sticking with us as we go over the time, as always. Glad you were part of the show. Hit us up on Facebook. Hit us up on Twitter. I'm starting to publish now in my on the Under the Dome Facebook page. My good, bad, and ugly, my little instant take I take, I give right after the ball game of things that I see, stuff that I can talk about. And if you don't like what I have to say, comment on, or if you do like what I have to say, but especially if you don't like what I have to say, comment on it. I'll talk about it some more, on this show on Tuesday. We can expand on any points that people may say, you're way off on that, or no, that was a good analysis. I like that. You know, this is just stuff I say.
We love feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
It tells us how we need to do our jobs.
Right, because otherwise I'm just rambling on like I'm doing right now. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us as always, and we'll see you next week on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.